So we'll just click open, and you're going to get what's called the import field mapping dialog. There's a lot going on here, so let's go from left to right, top to bottom, and try to cover everything in here. First thing you should notice is your source, names.fp7. This is where you're getting your data from. Your target is the current table contacts. Of course, you can choose other tables. We don't have any, but you could choose them if you want. In fact, you could even import it into a brand new table if you wanted to. So you'd have two tables, contacts and names, but we really want it to go into the existing contacts table here. Now, the divider is right down here, this column. This is the source data, this is the target data. So these are your source fields. Now, if you're coming from a tab separated or a comma separated, you will not see these fields necessarily. In fact, you won't see them unless they happen to be the first record in there. So it's important to remember that because we're coming from a FileMaker file, it knows these fields and it makes it a lot easier to import them. Now over here are all the fields you have inside your current table that we've created. In fact, you'll see address 2 all the way down here because it was the last one created. We deleted it and then added it back in. So this is all creation order right now. So what you have to do is you have to match the source and the target fields up. And how do you do that? Well, you see these little icons here. You notice how my cursor changes when I move over them? If you hold over that and then click and hold, you can move them up. So we could move email up to phone if we wanted to. And you can see how they swap positions here. Or if you want to, you can hold down the Apple or Command key, or on Windows the Control key, and you can see how that it changes. So with that key held down, you can use the up and down arrows and move them that way if you want. So that sometimes is easier if you have a long list because they can scroll really fast when you're doing it with the mouse. But you also have this option here. And my favorite one is matching names because it makes things very easy. If you have similar field names, it makes it easy to match them. Of course, all these can be used the last order. Of course, if you had been playing around here, you could go back to the last order if you want, or the creation order, or sort them by field names or field types, or custom, which happens when you start rearranging them manually. But we're going to go with matching names because it's going to do a pretty good job. You can see that even though it matched these up, they didn't have the same field name, it still matched them up pretty good. And it may have just been by luck at this point, but it did help certainly with city and state and phone here. Now, we also need to have these little arrows between them. So we have to click that arrow, and we're going to have to move last name up there. Or actually last name, you have to move the ones on the right down. So we'll move this one down there, put an arrow there. Now these are matched up, put an arrow there, zip and postal code. Now full name is a calculation field over here. We could import it into a field here, but we won't have one corresponding. But if it was a calculation field that we had on this side, we wouldn't want to import it at all. And we don't have any address to field over here, so we don't need to import into that. No date of birth field. So we're all set to go. Once you've scrolled down the whole list, you're set to go. And remember our housekeeping fields, you would not import into these either typically. You could, but typically you won't do that because you're getting this data from another source that doesn't have these. But if they did, you could import into them. Now you also want to take a look at this section here, which allows you to scroll through your data. Right now we're looking at the field names. As soon as we scroll, we'll see the data. And this may help out, especially with comma or tab separated formats that don't have the field labels in there. And you can look at the data and go, oh yeah, Billy's the first name, that should go there, and so on. It also tells you how many records you have here, what records you're on. So that's a very handy little feature there. Now you also have this section right here. Your most common choice is going to be to add these as new records, but you could update the existing records in the found set. So that requires you to kind of match what you have in your target with what you have in your source, and it'll just simply write over them. So you wouldn't have to import every field at that point. You could just import, let's say, the first name field and the last name field and keep the address in the target. It's up to you. I don't use it that often. More often I'd use update matching records in found set, which allow you to synchronize the two. It's much better than just overwriting as you do with update existing records. Update matching records requires you to choose a match here and how to match them up, and that could be done in a variety of ways, but then it intelligently updates those records from the source to the target. But we're going to go with add new records, and we're going to click import here. And this dialog comes up. Now we do have, if you remember, our housekeeping fields, which are auto enter. So we would want to check this. Otherwise they're going to be blank. And it would be nice to know when we imported them, when they got in there. So make sure you check that on this particular import, but there are times when you don't want to do that. Let's say there was data already importing. We wouldn't want to overwrite that. We'd want the data from the source coming into the target, not overwritten. And then this is a section you'll probably unlikely use because FileMaker is a relational solution and you don't use repeating fields much anymore, especially for data entry you don't use it. And so this would be a feature for taking your repeating fields to more relational structure. So don't worry about that unless you had a repeating field inside of this scenario, then this will not be available until you have those repeating fields. So we'll just click import here. It gives you a little summary. The most important thing is no errors. You can see 41 records were imported. And you can see that you have 41 of 43 records. And notice that this is looking a little bit different here. This little icon here shows you how many records you have in the found set. Before it was gray, and you could show all records if you want, but I don't want to destroy the found set right now. You notice it turned green and there's a little slice out of the pie chart here. It's not really a pie chart, it's just kind of telling you visually how many records you have. So that's a nice little nifty new addition to FileMaker Pro 10 and FileMaker Pro 10 Advanced. And so again, you want to notice that we had 2 records before, but they're not currently in the found set. Only the 41 records we imported are in the found set. And that's because you may want to manipulate them after you import them. It's a very handy thing. You import, you get a found set. And as you work with FileMaker, you're going to realize that found sets are very, very important. Whatever found set you're looking at right now is what you work on, what you print, what you sort, all those kinds of things that you do with a database work on the found set, and that's really the power of a database. So now we have some data in FileMaker that we can work with, and we'll continue on with working with this database.